Welcome everyone to another action figure review. Today's going to be a special one. It's a throwback to a 2001 release by McFarlane Toys, and that is the Major Motoko Kusunagi figure from Ghost in the Shell. Those of you who are familiar with Japanese anime will know that this is an early 90s movie that is very influential in a lot of films we see today. So without Ghost in the Shell, we may not have got The Matrix or the Avatar films. This was a film that I wasn't old enough to see back in the day, but I recently checked it out and I liked it. And of course, having been influential in one of my favorite franchises, The Matrix, I decided to give it a go. And this is one of those figures that is still widely available in terms of this Ghost in the Shell anime. There isn't that many lines out there who have made like a figure. I think Figma may have been one, but other than that I don't see that many around. So looking at the packaging, you can see that it is the old vintage style. So in that clamshell, once you take it out of the box, it's kind of just thrown away. And you can see that it's got a really nice title with a shot of the picture of the figure, and already it's in like a nice pose. I think that's something that McFarlane liked to do. And then if we take a look at the back of the box, you can see it's got the line where it shows you some of the other releases. Akira is one of the lines they made for this Animation Japan, and I do have some of those figures. And then we have the Ghost in the Shell here as well. And then at the bottom, it's also some pictures of the other McFarlane releases during that time. And we've got an advertisement for the Akira DVD. So let's get this major figure out of its box and take a closer look. So now I've got everything out of its packaging. So it first includes this manual. So you can see that it tells you how to plug and play with this figure. So you basically just attach the hoses to the 4 connected plugs, as it says here. And it's got some photos as well. And then we have 2 hoses, solid pieces, and then it does include this base, which kind of shows off like a greenish pond. And this is one thing I like about the McFarlane Toys, is they included a lot of bases with their figures back in the day. So this one you can see all these hoses attached to it. And then of course we have the figure itself, Major. And even though it's an old figure, it does look pretty good in terms of the sculpt. So this is basically based off the opening scene when they're building the cyborg, and it's kind of changing the robot to like a human flesh, and you can see the design here. So it's actually a pretty iconic scene because they used it for the poster as well. And I think for a 2001 figure, I think it's designed pretty well, and I do like the way they've sculpted it. So she is in that sleep mode. And then this is all the details at the back. You can see like the robotic design. So very futuristic. And considering it's an old figure, I don't expect much movement, but it does have some sort of articulation as well. So you can tilt the head sculpt side to side. And then the arms also move backwards and forwards. You can also have a bend as well. The hands also have rotation. And then there's a swivel on the waist. And then there's a knee bend as well, so some sort of movement. The legs also move forwards and backwards, so you can kind of get it in the pose you want, but obviously it's going to be more or less in that same pose as the opening scene or that poster. So let's try and get the hoses into the back, and then we'll display it all together. So you can see that the base already has these 3 hoses, but 2 of them you can remove. So I'm going to plug them out and then move those to the side. So we have 2 spaces for the 2 here. And you can basically plug it in, and it's designed really well. So basically you have Major kind of floating around, kind of like the opening scene. And you just have to play around with it until you get it in the right pose, which I'm going to do now. So after a couple of minutes, I managed to get this figure in its floating pose. So it does represent the opening scene when that cyborg is built for Major. And it also represents the poster as well. So it's a very iconic scene if you're a fan of Ghost in the Shell. And to have this as a figure, I think it does a great job. So very creative in the way that McFarlane have designed this. So even their old figures like the Matrix line, they had a lot of the figures in its iconic poses. So they've kind of done the same for this figure. So you can see that it has the all 6 hoses attached to the body. So 2 of the hard plastic ones are the ones that managed to hold this figure up. One is attached to the back of the body and one is to the head. And then the rest of them, which are soft rubber materials, they're kind of just there for display, but you can see it's plugged to the body part. So you can see that it's very nice. Still need to play around with it to kind of get it in the right pose. It's kind of offsetting to the side, but it takes a bit of time. Just move the hoses and then you can go and kind of get it in the place you want. So the figure does include a gun. Not too sure if she had one in that opening scene, but nevertheless it's just there for a design. So you can plug it in as well, and you can see this is the final display, and I do like it. I think they put so much effort in terms of the way they wanted it, with the hoses, and then you can see even the creases on the foot. And since this figure is influential in the Matrix, I did want to show you some of the bases that was included in the Neo and Trinity figures. And those of you who remember Ghost in the Shell, the final battle scene, a lot of the buildings were being shot, and obviously the Matrix, the movie, they took that part from it, and you can kind of use it for this figure as well. So it includes the bases as well. These are both from the Neo and Trinity figures, and you can kind of just display them around if you want, if you're not using it for the Matrix. So I think that's a pretty cool idea to also have if you have those figures. And just to quickly show you, here is the Neo figure and the Trinity one, and they're both kind of in a set pose which you're meant to display in the bases. And I've also picked up some of the other lines like Akira. So you can see these were more figurines, or not figurines, but they were more like figures rather than statues. You can play around a bit more with these two, but the other 3 you can see it's in kind of like a set pose. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and I think if you're a fan of Ghost in the Shell, it's worth getting this figure for the right price. I think there's not that many out there, so yeah, just a special video. Wanted to go back and show you one of the recent pickups, because obviously every year there are new figures coming out and I do buy them, but there are times when I want to go back and then find a figure that's been released many years ago, and this is one of them. So yeah, stay tuned for more. I will be doing some more reviews for new figures in the coming days as well. Thanks for watching.